and stuff like that.
Okay, trustees, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. Go for it.
We're starting. Okay, guys, we're starting. I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Trustees for April 8th, 2024. And I'd like to open with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Arlene, can you do roll call, please?
John Aldred, Francis Bob,
Here.
David Cataletto,
Here.
Patrice Dalton,
Here.
Ben Dollinger,
Here.
Tim Garnell,
Here.
Brian, Celia Josephson,
Here.
William Taylor.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, let's start with public comment. Do you mind, Sarah, do you mind waiting until, I don't think these will be too long. Okay. Billy Hayjack, we'll start with you.
Good evening. Here requesting permission for a bluff restoration. This is property located on Water's Edge, fronting on Napeak Bay. It's a project that unprotected shoreline at this particular property. All the properties north, I think it's about 1,500 to 2,000 linear feet, is all revetted and bulkheaded. This property received permits or approvals from the board about 14 years ago, 10 years ago, to complete a similar project. We put in about 500 cubic yards of sand material, revegetated the bluff. It's pretty much all gone again. And actually this last storm we had Thursday and Friday took a little bit more. So we're back requesting permission again. Access would be off of Barnes Hole Road, and we're gonna pretty much the same routine as last time. Do you have any specific questions? It's gonna be sand material and revegetation with beach grass. The contractor at this time, we believe, is going to be Pat Bistrian, who did the work last go around. If you scroll away,
Did you look at this, Patrice?
It says he described it.
We have applications pending before the town planning department for an expedited administrative permit. That's still pending, and our DEC application is pending at the moment.
I don't really have any questions on this, because you're just doing beach grass here, right?
Yes.
Is there any core log or anything based on this, or you just?
We added core logs to the description. We didn't use any last time, but this time we might put one or two rows of core logs at the base just to help it from slumping. But we didn't use them last time, but this time we're contemplating it. But we're going to see how it comes out in the field, sort of as needed basis.
Looks like that hard structure just to the north really kind of probably guts out your client's property, right?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Yeah. I don't know if anybody to the north has ever covered their revetments with sand, but that would help if they did. So I think that would drift south, and just to the south of us, or this property is the homeowners association piece. They just did. I was out there today. They had just done a little beach grass planting as well. This is sort of the end of the bluff area, though. It's kind of higher at the north end of the property. It slopes off at the south end.
Patrice, you've looked at this. You want to make a motion to approve this? You
I
think
do
this
make a
should
motion to approve this application. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Great.
The only thing is just to add, Allison, just add language, the usual contingent on issuance of the other permit.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Billy. Okay, and next we have Grace Craig.
Greetings, everyone.
for support of
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I wanted to just first let you know how much I appreciate the duck blinds. I'm a longtime, lifelong waterfowler and have a blind in Hands Creek. It's blind number 9. I have a nesting pair of swans right behind the blind. And I just wanted to make this a matter of public record that I haven't removed the blind because I'd have to disturb the nesting swans. So I'm looking to the trustees for guidance on this. So thank you.
Well, I think Allison looked into this. DEC calls June 1, the end of the nesting season. I'm sure those cygnets will be kicked off way before then. Yeah, it was a nice little video.
Duly noted. Thank you. I'll get it out of there as soon as I can.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So are we setting a date on removing that?
Well, I wouldn't do it before June 1. Usually the swans are, as soon as they hatch, they're off the nest. I mean, usually it happens. DEC, Allison talked to them today, and they're calling it June 1, but usually it happens way before then.
Okay, and next we have Sarah Davison, Friends of Georgia Pond Annual Report. Sarah.
Hello, everyone. It's great to see you all. And I think this is my first time in front of the board with Patrice and Celia. So congratulations very belatedly on your election, and it's great to see you as part of this board. So Allison, if I could have the first slide. I'm just very happy to be here on this exciting day to just give you an update on what's coming down the pipe this year and get your interest and comments and approvals. And as you know, yeah, that's great, Allison. Thank you. Every year I come before you, but I do meet with the pond committee more regularly just so we're all on the same page. And then we also have a steering committee, which the trustees are represented on, where we meet with town and village and not-for-profit folks and Dr. Gobler. So here's our report for this year. If I could have the next slide. So this will be the ninth field season of the buoy, the telemetry buoy. It's a solar-powered telemetry buoy in the southern part of the pond, in the deepest part of the pond. And the trustees were wise enough to hire Dr. Gobler 10 years ago to start the town-wide monitoring, and Friends joined in to augment that monitoring by installing this buoy. And it's been just invaluable as a tracker of trends and data of what's happening in the water of the pond. And as you can see, it measures temperature, which is just becoming much more interesting and important. I think some of you saw that 2024, the ocean temperatures are higher than they've ever been already this year. So temperature trends are really key. Salinity, dissolved oxygen, pH. It measures the blue-green pigments and chlorophyll, which is a general measurement of just plant green material in the pond. And then we also get bacterial counts, not from the buoy, but separate nitrogen and phosphorus. And then we're also monitoring PFAS compounds in the ponds. So we have a comprehensive monitoring program at Georgia Pond, thanks to your program and ours working together. Next slide, Allison. So the winter dredging that the trustees authorized has been completed. I gave the pond committee a little feedback about that, but it was a successful year of dredging and looks really great out there. And just wanted to summarize for you where we are with that permit that you hold. It was a 10-year dredging permit, and we're in year 7 from the DEC and Army Corps of Engineers permit. So that'll expire January 14th, 2028, and in discussion with Jim, we talked about trying to get the permit ready for submission and review by the DEC 18 months in advance of that date to give them plenty of time to review it and make comments. And so that, although 2028 seems like a long way away, it's really not that far away. So we want to get ready for that very important event to renew that for another 10 years. Next slide. We also have a Georgia Pond Management Plan, which was required to get that dredging permit, and we drafted that together as a group with input from a lot of folks, but the town trustees approved that plan in 2021, and it was submitted to the DEC in compliance with the dredging permit. And here we are in 2024 already, and there's a lot of new initiatives, and the data that was in that 2021 report was mostly completed by 2019 and 2020. So the data needs to be updated in that plan. And so that's something I'll be working with, and Friends will be working with our partners and with the pond committee to get that updated for, in preparation for the DEC. Next slide. So the aquatic weed harvester was launched in 2016, and we've had really a remarkable and very interesting road here. This is the current harvester that is a locally owned machine and is under contract to Friends to operate on the pond. That's the DEC permit you see there on the stick. This is right at the top headwaters of Georgia Cove. And you can see a little bit of the pond weed. This is when the harvester's empty. When it has a full load, it looks very different. But you can see some of the remnants of the pond weed and the algae on that harvester. So we started the harvester with a different DEC permit. It was called a scientific license to collect. And then basically the DEC said, you need a full wetlands permit. And so we spent that year of 2019 preparing that permit and submitting it. And it took a long time to get reviewed and approved. It didn't get approved until 2021. So in 2020, we had that really remarkable just explosion of pondweed and green algae in the cove. And we were able to get an emergency permit in 2020 from the DEC for just that one area of the pond and for harvesting just for a month there. And then when we got the permit in 2021, we were able to start in August. And then in 2022, we had a regular year. And in 2023, we operated for 2 months, but there was very little pondweed, as you can see the big drop in the pounds. But total harvested to date, 330,000 pounds. Quite a lot of biomass. So what does that tell you? It tells you that this nutrient-filled pond is producing, just like a fertile farm field, it's producing a tremendous amount of plant material. And by bioextracting it, we're removing that much nitrogen and phosphorus from the pond. And so, it's a complicated system. There's a lot of factors at work here, but we're pretty confident that the trend is a very positive trend with the harvester and improving water quality. Next slide, Allison. With that harvester permit comes an obligation to monitor its impacts, right? You don't want to just be harvesting every year and not know what the impacts are. So every year in June and in September, Dr. Peterson, a colleague of Dr. Gobler at SOMAS and Stony Brook, does the monitoring, and they have 79 data points throughout the pond, equally dispersed around the pond with GPS locations. And they collect pondweed pre and post harvest. They monitor water quality parameters where they're sampling, and then they do trap and seine sampling. So they do that before and after to get a handle on fish diversity, fish abundance, invertebrates, such as some of the little shrimp that are in the pond, that kind of thing. And we have a lot of data since 2018 on the diversity and the abundance of species. And at the same time, we do a bycatch analysis, which is the right slide. So every 2 weeks, we take a sample load and we just tear that load apart on that tarp and count every species of fish or shrimp or crab that's in that load. And we can, so by doing that, we know how many loads we take out of the pond for a season, so we can project the bycatch count. And so that's been really interesting. Different species are caught in the bycatch, species that take cover in the pond weeds and whatnot, versus species that are collected in the seining and the trapping. But the good news is that the monitoring is showing that basically, although there's year-to-year variation on different species, that the volume and the diversity is basically stable. So we can basically infer that the harvester's not having a negative impact on those species. Next slide. So this is the watershed, and you're all familiar with the watershed. It's a big watershed. It's almost 4,000 acres, and the pond itself is only 300 acres. So there's a large contributing area. You can very clearly see the airport there and the Pine Barrens area around the airport that's much less densely settled. All those orange dots represent about a house. So there's about 2,000 homes in the entire watershed. So and you can see the farmland and sort of the changes in the patterns in the watershed here. So basically all those homes have septic systems, and they are contributing nitrogen to the groundwater, which flows into Georgia Pond. Next slide. So the map on the left is the 10-year travel time, or the water protection district as established by the town. And that's a smaller zone than what I just showed you, but there are about 280 homes in that 10-year travel time. And as we know, nitrogen from septic systems from wastewater is the highest contributing component to nitrogen in the pond. Second, it would be nitrogen from fertilizer. And in Gobler's studies, he was able to differentiate nitrogen that was originated from fertilizer versus originating from wastewater. So we're pretty comfortable that it's 51% from wastewater. And that's pretty characteristic on Long Island and the ponds that, the watersheds that Gobler studies. There are some that are different, but wastewater is definitely something that has to be addressed here at Georgia Pond, and we've been working very hard at it. And next slide, if you will, Allison. There are about 54 systems that have been removed or in the process of being removed from the watershed. So it's a start, but as I say, there are 280 in that 10-year travel time. So there's quite a ways to go. And to help spur the process, the Center for Clean Water Technology, which is CCWT, along with the Peconic Land Trust, hired Tom Varley, the watershed manager, and his sole responsibility is to reach out to homeowners at Sagaponack Pond and at Georgia Pond to get them to help them with the septic upgrade process. I mean, he does help other people outside those two watersheds, but those watersheds are his primary responsibility. And it's been a real help to have him on board, following up on the details for homeowners to get their systems done. I don't know how are you making headway with yours, Patrice? Good. this is what we have to keep doing. And I would say to the trustees, even though this is outside your jurisdiction, I know you know how important this is, and just at every opportunity you can, when you interact with landowners or changes in people's landscapes, that you encourage and endorse this voluntary upgrade, which of course has the up to 40,000 in matching or in incentive money to help fund it. Why not do it, right? On the picture on the right is just a fully installed Fuji system in a yard near the pond. I think we all know what those 3 green discs look like now. Okay, next slide. Another project we've been working on with the trustees, particularly John Aldred. I'm sorry he's not here tonight, but he's been a great help and senior advisor here. We also work with Barley over at the hatchery. Is a 5-year experiment on growing oysters in Georgia Pond. Obviously not for consumption, but for to test their water filtering impact on the pond. And in the first couple of years, we demonstrated that they can actually survive and grow in Georgia Pond. They actually can spawn. And the Gobler lab was delighted to find that it has a low disease frequency. The Derma disease is pretty common in more saline situations, but it's pretty low disease incidence at Georgia Pond. So the next step was forming these bags of shell bags, as you see on the right there, with spat on them. And there's 2 years of experimenting with the spat on shell, putting it in directly, or the first year when they put the spat on shell in the pond, there wasn't a very high success rate, one from predation, but one also, that's crab predation, by the way. The other reason for the lack of success they felt was the lack of accommodation to the low salinity. So the next year when they did this spat on shell, they put the spat on the shell in the lab in a low salinity situation first and let it acclimatize, and then they moved it into the pond, and there was much higher survivorship. So you don't want to subject anyone to a shock of salinity. You want to make it a gradual. So it's been very encouraging, the growth in the predator-free areas of the bags is very pronounced, and so we will be continuing that. There are 3 of these accumulations of bags in the pond, and this year we'll be looking at what is the right size to keep the crabs from preying on them quite so severely, and also looking at when they do spawn and larvae are circulating, what is the survivorship of the larva? Which nobody knows at this point. Okay, next slide. Now, the trustees have been participating in the 2 stormwater studies that Friends has been working on with the town of East Hampton and the village of East Hampton. And we got some funding from Suffolk County for the rest stop, and been using CPF water quality money for the Cove Hollow pipe and the rest stop. So you've seen these pictures before of these 2 sites. This project has taken a long time, but we are really happy to let you know, and I'm thrilled my colleague Billy is here Billy Hayjack from the village, who's been working hard on this as well, that the engineering plans for these projects are completed. The Cove Hollow has to go to the village board for approval, but basically we're finally ready to start getting permits. They've been tested with the DEC and get the bidding started. But basically we know that stormwater brings in all kinds of bacteria, contaminants, solvents, oils, and both of these projects are designed to reduce the amount of stormwater that enters the pond at the top of Georgia Cove, and at the highway rest stop. Next slide. Another thing we encourage homeowners to do, and the trustees have some jurisdiction here, is to restore buffer zones between their lawns and the pond, and especially if they're doing Phragmites projects that you can't just remove Phragmites, you have to replace it with something. And it's a tough challenge from a restoration point of view, but it can be done. And this is just an example of a comparison between the year the buffer was planted and the next year on the growth, and it's continued to grow pretty well. Next slide. So new in this field season, I wanted to bring to your attention is some work on the Georgia Capon sediments, which are somewhat famous for their depth and their black muckiness. So this map, I don't know if you can make it out, but you see different zones of colors. Those are the textures of the sediment. So the yellow are sand, which is the most coarse texture, and obviously that's down at the base of the pond, and that's some of the sand that the dredging project removed this winter. But if you look up in the north end of the pond, you'll see a lot of blacks and browns, and those are mucks and mucky sand. And then the numbers are the depth of the material, which is in meters. So if you can see, like in Georgia Cove, there's 1.1 meters of muck. And, on the west side of the pond, you can see 1.2 meters. So that's pretty significant depth of material. So over the years, and why are we interested in the sediments in the pond bottom? Because they're a huge harbor of phosphorus and quite a bit of nitrogen as well. And so there's been a lot of thought and discussion and meetings about how could you dredge some of this sediment out. And it's been, just very difficult, very expensive, very few opportunities for dewatering the sediment. So we're proposing this year to do a lab experiment at the Goldberg lab with a completely different approach to sediments. And that is more of an oxygenating chemical treatment of the sediments in a lab, not in the pond, using oxygen and a chemical called titanium dioxide, TiO2, which is a fairly unstable chemical. It's very common. You have it in a lot of our food we eat. It's in our suntan lotion. So it's not a toxic chemical, but what basically in combination with oxygen is called phytocatalytic. It can break down organic matter. So we would like permission from you this year to take a few liter samples of the muck in Georgia Cove to bring back to the Gobler lab and test the phytolytic process on it and see if it's effective at the Georgia Cove sediments. This has been done in a number of ponds in the southeast where it was permitted to be done in situ, in the ponds itself, and in many other lab experiments with very positive results. So it's just going to be a small experiment, just a couple of liters of sediment, but it will be very interesting to see what the impact is. And this will be a long-term process to see if the DEC would even permit it, and the trustees would permit it, in a pond or in a real ecosystem. But we just wanted to get a sense of what would happen in the lab here. So that is new in 2024. And then the next slide. So this is Eel Cove is western facing, that's where the Georgia Association boat launch is, Eel Cove, and this is a very handsome cattail marsh that drains into Eel Cove. And Allison, if you could show the next slide. This is an aerial photo. That middle area, there's Eel Cove, the beach at Eel Cove, and then there's the little road in the association. That big brown area is the cattail marsh, and then just to the west of that are the fields, agricultural fields in Wainscott. And the groundwater monitoring throughout the pond's watershed showed very high nitrogen coming out of those fields, as you could imagine, right? I mean, it's an active, fertilized agriculture fields. And that plume of nitrogen flows down to Eel Cove. So what we're doing, and we've gotten DEC in town okay to do, is to put in some groundwater monitoring wells in those areas where the red arrows are to see what the impact of that wonderful marsh has on reducing the nitrogen. Obviously, the nitrogen in the groundwater is going to be reduced somewhat as it travels through the ground to the pond, but wetlands are known to remove nutrients from soil and water, and so to see what the impact of that marsh is. And then this will be about a year of sampling those wells. And then when we're finished with that, then there'll be data to share with everyone on, well, how bad is the nitrogen getting into the pond from here? Is there something that could be done? So the great thing is that the 3 homes around this Cattail Marsh have all put in low nitrogen septic systems. So we can, somewhat rule out that, but they're going to be testing the type of nitrogen to make sure it's fertilizer nitrogen. And so if it is fertilized, if it's not attenuated and it's really causing significant nitrogen input to the pond, this might be a place where one of the permeable reactive barriers or some design of that sort that would intercept nitrogen in the groundwater could be considered. So this is a year of monitoring ahead, and we'll come back to you and let you know what nitrogen is doing there. And that will be very interesting and potentially a way to reduce some of the nitrogen impacts on the pond. So that's kind of a review of what we've been doing, and what's ahead for this year. That's the last slide, Allison. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I just want to thank all of you for your interest and support of the pond and the dredging and the monitoring. It's just so important. And we're seeing more and more homeowner engagement and obviously water quality improvements. I mean, if pond becomes 90 degrees in the summer, that's something that'd be hard to do anything about, but.
Hey, Sarah, that low harvest number for this past year, have you, Dr. Goldberg, done any correlation between water temperature? Whether the salinity, what was going on that attributed that low?
That's really the question. Why was it so low this year? Was there less nitrogen in the pond? Was it super hot?
Is it a trend? Is it a
trend?
anomaly?
And he would say one year isn't a trend. The overall trend was coming down, but that was quite a precipitous drop. He's working on the report right now, which you will all, I haven't seen it myself, but we'll get it to you. But it could be an anomaly. Obviously, we'll know this year if the amount goes up, that it was an anomaly. I know that in looking back at Donald Petrie's Pond Watcher Almanac, which some of you may be aware that he took notes of the pond for many, many years. He did note years of bad algae and then years when it improved. So who knows? That's the real question, Jim, is why did that jump? And if we see a continuing trend there, then we'll know.
I noticed the state was doing some work, it looked like drainage work around the pond on the highway.
Yes.
Have you guys been involved in that?
Yeah, well, I mean, not in terms of cleaning out those.
No, I understand that. I know we were trying to get them to.
Yeah, I've been bugging them a lot about, because the cheapest thing you can do to improve stormwater is just to make sure your drainage basins are working and they're not filled, right, Billy? I mean, some in the village are filled with leaves, right? And so they're not intercepting stormwater.
Maintenance thing.
Yeah, it's a maintenance thing. And, compared to building new wetlands or whatever, if you just maintain your drainage basins, you'll be a lot better off. So they are responding to all of our pressure about that and have been, that's
They
from
look like they did the whole section. It's been,
all the way to Skimhampton, from the pond to Skimhampton Road in the village. Or maybe that's in the town. Anyway, they've been replacing ones that were too damaged and restoring others. So that'll help a lot.
you have to keep a maintenance schedule
Yeah.
going. Apparently your pressure's paying off.
Well, that's when you gotta write a lot of letters.
Have you ever tried kelp in the pond?
It's not saline enough. Kelp needs a real, 30 parts of salt. Georgia Pond can be at seawater saltiness when the gut is open and there's lots of flushing, but it's usually more like 13 or 12. It's just not enough for kelp.
And you also have the temperature issue.
Temperature.
Most of the kelps want to grow under much colder temperatures.
Yes.
Well, I guess the natural vegetation picks up as much
Sure.
nitrogen as the kelp.
Well, I don't know, kelp is like this super algae, right? But
Yeah,
yeah, I
but
mean,
if
it's
you're
definitely
if you're only using it for absorbing
Extraction.
nitrogen, you're not
right.
trying to make a food crop out of it.
Right. Yeah, all the plant material, that's kind of the logic behind the harvester, right? That the plant material's taking up the nutrients, and if you remove it, you're removing the nutrients from the system.
And, we've been using all that for fertilizer.
Well, we take it to the recycling, the compost facility.
That was really thorough. Thank you, Sarah. I had a question. Could we approve the phytocatalytic samples that we approved? You guys could take those tonight or something?
Yeah.
It sounds like only a win-win, so.
Yeah, that would be great. Oh, I did forget to say about the harvester.
We actually get something in writing.
That would be fine
From
too.
Goldber's lab, so
Yeah.
we're not just knee-jerk
Okay, well,
approving something.
Sarah explained it at our meeting the other night at the
Yeah.
Georgia.
Unfortunately,
meeting.
Jim.
It's pretty thorough, so, but we could wait if you want.
Yeah, I'm happy to,
Okay.
happy to submit something in writing. It would be sampling just in the cove, and I'll give you, a couple of liters, he said, and it'll be in the summertime, so I'll just get that in writing. I forgot to say with the harvester slide, that that's a 5-year permit with the DEC and the town, and thanks to Bill Taylor last year, when we've been coming to you for annual approval for the harvester, and Bill had the bright idea to make it concurrent with the other 5-year permits. So your approval of that is intact. But I'll come back to you with a little synopsis of the sampling. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Sarah. Okay, Matt, do we have anyone on the phones?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to old business. We're going to skip the first item on that list. Chris will talk to us about it later. Next, we have the Aquaponic Marsh Restoration Project. Is a permit needed? This is a question from John Aldred.
I would think we should, even if it's an expedited approval, I think just sort of ignoring the science and ignoring a process on these things sets us up for issues down the road. Certainly, it's going to have to go through some sort of a process with DEC, with the town, and the other agencies. So I don't think this is something that you just sort of on a willy-nilly fashion under the heading of science, you just sign off on it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we really know the specs on this project, which sort of.
It's a little like, it's a little like Sarah coming in here tonight, presenting an annual report, and we discuss other aspects or other side projects. If you have something that's packaged up in a narrative, it's in a written form, you can look back on it And if there are any questions from the public, or if there are any other issues that appear to be a problem with these things, we've done our job.
I'm this way on it. I'm not completely convinced that we have total jurisdiction of these properties in order to issue the permit.
Yeah, I don't know, we should just,
But John feels that they're kind of asking for the permit because it will enhance their ability to get funding for it. So, I don't know.
yeah, I think it's a project we should support.
Yeah.
And we don't have the
disagree.
specifics, to make, but can we send them something that we support the project? I mean, doesn't have to be a specific permit for a specific area. We can just tell them, we support, any project you undertake to
So in terms of geography, do we have jurisdiction up to the high?
a lot of that stuff is murky.
The question is, where's the high water mark?
Well, just assuming that that is the case,
And okay,
it's pretty high.
but that's on a beach. I mean, we
Correct.
use the high water mark on a beach. A wetland is not a beach.
No,
Right.
no, but it's
We could just-
intertidal.
Yes.
There is a meat and bound to that system, whether it's got sand, whether it's like on a beach situation, Francis, where the dune vegetation runs out. There might be a band of sand and then the emergent vegetation occurs. You still have the same situation. And I think given the fact that it's contiguous at very least to what we definitely do own, at the very least, we're an interested party here.
Yeah. We could just couch it as, we give you permission to do this on any property we own. And just leave it vague like
I don't
that.
think we know specifically yet where this is going to be conducted.
if they-
We know
if they
generally.
come in.
I think that this is going to be one of those things. I think this is kind of PEP doing this.
Yes.
Okay, so they're going to come to us with probably a narrative and a proposal
Right.
for the area, outlining what they want to do. And I think at that point, certainly we're seeing a situation occurring and support it. Provide some documentation in support of it, because they're certainly going to need other permits from other agencies.
Do we think their application needs this? She can move ahead with
It
it.
might not be a permit per se. This may be just a cheerleading letter.
Yeah, we have that, right?
We've done it for other things. And what you're doing there is you're not even touching the issue of jurisdiction.
So could there be a situation where they need trustee permission for access to carry out the project over trustee property? If that's the case, we can, letter support and, kind of qualifying exactly what we approve of, and then we would be able to grant a permit if we, put it in that phrase it like that. But I think as of right now, a letter of support, once we have a full picture of the project, would be sufficient.
Anyone else have thoughts? I agree. All right, I guess we'll move on to committee reports. Aquaculture, State of
I
the Bay
traveled to
update.
that State of the Bays conference through terrible rain and wind, so I survived to give a report to the trustees. Well, in general, of course, Dr. Gobler has addressed the very local issues that affect the areas over which the trustees have jurisdiction, but I sort of partly just want to give an overview, which unfortunately is one of, sort of growing concern. mainly because of the impacts of climate change, the impacts of warmer water on the various problems that we've been discussing in general tonight with Sarah, et cetera. Also, the fact I was surprised to learn that Suffolk County has more nitrate in its water than in its public water than any other county in New York State, and the primary source is wastewater. In addition, nitrate is a probable carcinogen. So everyone here understands that also excess nitrogen causes oxygen depletion, especially at night, and this slows growth of bivalves, which is mainly a problem because then predators have a better chance of consuming the smaller bivalves. In terms of how kelp or other material can help water quality, the kelp raises the pH of the water, which helps bivalves, and it also destroys alexandrium. And as was said before, kelp grows mainly in winter, but perhaps it can be augmented by red seaweed in the summertime. The main thing that I came away with feeling more concerned about was just the various bacterial threats, because as the water warms, suddenly we are seeing bacteria that we've never seen here before. And the sort of scariest one from a public point of view is this, the bacteria they've experienced in Florida, this Vibrio vulnificus, which requires warmer water, but it is really scary stuff where if you get a cut, you can be seriously ill.
Vibrio, we've always had. It's part of the environment. And it's a problem when the salinity decreases in the water and it's warm, it can grow rapidly. And if you have a cut,
right.
So the old timers would tell us, don't go swimming in the bay when the water's really warm after rain. And that's probably good advice.
The rains, you have to get a combination of the fresh water from a heavy rain into warm water. And this stuff that's there can grow exponentially in hours. That's so, I mean, it's, then it kind of goes away, as the salinity changes.
Well, I think it's important to just, give the public some awareness without, using any kind of scary, language, but at the same time, making people aware. And there are also presence of other bacteria, including the so-called pseudonitschia. And ironically, it produces domoic acid that can cause amnesiac shellfish poisoning in humans, actually. But supposedly, although Alfred Hitchcock did not know about this, wasn't aware of this, but what he portrayed in his film, The Birds, actually he didn't base it on an actual occurrence, which occurred in California, where birds became ill from this toxin, and they behaved in this way. So, I think that we have to be more alert and monitor much more, or as much as possible, just to be on the lookout for some of these bacteria. So that's my summary.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next thing we have, powering of clams. John and I happened to be in the office the other day, and we had a drop-in visit by one of the baymen asking if we were going to revisit the idea of allowing powering for the soft and razor clams. So, what's that?
Do you even have any razor clams?
I think there's a few out there that they found.
Is that why we dropped a few years ago? Just there was no interest in too many clams.
Well, there was interest, but what happened is when they actually went out looking, they didn't really find as much. They didn't find as much or where they thought they would find it.
Yeah.
He claims he had quite a bit of success with it.
Who was this?
It was Harvey Stone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, we've had those permits open. We can do it again. We did it last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
we can do it again. There wasn't, it wasn't like there was a mad rush. I think the first year we restarted the powering, there was quite a bit of interest because there was this potential out there. I think a lot of people thought, oh, we're going to really be able to tap into this. But I think there was only a few guys that really, and Robbie was one of them, that managed to find anything. And I don't know how many, Allison, do you know how many people pulled permits last year? I know it was lower than the year
None last year.
None?
There wasn't any in 2023. The last time we had permits was
We
2020.
didn't offer it to them and they thought we had ended it or something.
Right, so we did it in 2022.
The 22, the number dropped from that previous.
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
Like 7 or 8, yeah.
Yeah, we had like 7 or 8, maybe 10 at max people that got the permit.
Yeah.
And then we had maybe 3 people who brought back reports that we required.
So it sounds like something we should probably consider.
What was Robbie looking to try and do?
He was just planting the seed
All right.
to see if we would have an interest.
It's starting like November or something.
No, they did it during the warm up.
It says,
Started in April last time.
I thought it was May through 15th, so September 15th, it's closed.
Okay. Like they want us to extend it, start it earlier, 1 year.
So what John has proposed is powering of soft clams resolution written with dates to be determined, either pass for 1 year or until the end of this year. Either vote tonight or discuss terms, dates, and vote at next meeting. After the vote, there are 2 weeks for interested baymen to obtain a special permit. An accommodation for posting to the newspaper and town clerk needs to be considered since terms of the town code are modified. So, we can put this off and
Well, can we take the time between now and our next meeting to put something together that can be distributed to the membership here and actually have a real discussion about it and discuss those conditions and those dates?
Resolutions are in your file that John wrote. Everybody has a copy. I'll take one tonight.
Everyone got one Friday as well.
Probably wait till John's back too, right?
yeah, he did a draft, but it's just for you guys to review. You don't have to act on it tonight, but take a look at it, and if you have questions for John, he'll be back. He'll be back sometime this week. I'm not exactly sure which day.
It's an interesting question.
Yeah. And then he had a question about duck blinds. So he noticed an odd structure in the marsh in northwest 3 Mile Harbor, which turned out to be an 8 by 10 foot platform of a duck blind set on piers, 3 block high. The permit was attached. The rest of the blind had apparently been dismantled. Allison has the photos, albeit the structure after last week's storm has broken up. This seemed excessive based on other duck blinds he's seen, especially the elevation on piers. Given our developing demographics, should we have standards for duck blind construction, size, placement, etc.? So
I think we should definitely probably could use some more defined guidelines because leaving something that's placed over the marsh is just going to kill off that area. And even leaving, from what I understand, they left these cement blocks out in the marsh.
Do you like the picture?
Yeah. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, the typical blinds that we see are floaters, like Grace did over in Ann's Creek. And a lot of times the ones in the marsh are,
That's not very attractive.
no.
That's and then here, this is what it currently is like after the most recent storm.
Now, is that part of that duck blind that you see in the back there?
Yes, this was what was on top of, from my understanding, that's what was on top of here, and it had blown off, it looked like, from what he said.
Okay, so
The
listen.
permit was adhered to this structure somewhere, I don't know where, but that's how John knew who it was.
Is this trustee property? Private property.
Well, actually, it's not on trustee property at this point. We issue the permit for the blind, but what you got there is something that I don't think anybody had in mind, when you're issuing that permit. You know, we've got these steel posts that have been left behind, that as they rot off, they become sort of friggin' health hazards. You got the cement blocks that are killing portions of the marsh.
Well, at a minimum, I think
And it just looks like hell.
yeah, need a letter or just an email to the owner of that blind that needs to go, and then we can meet and come up with some future guidelines on if we need to, but floating standard sized duck blinds.
Yeah, because a lot of them, like the shore blinds like that, a lot of times guys in the past, years ago, used to use, you know, the metal U-posts, which are easy and convenient, but we've tried to move away from that and kind of like the snow fencing posts, go with wooden posts. And it's usually something simple like snow fence, and then it's grassed up.
That's it before we go.
No, this is what, just an example of what we generally get as a blind, something similar to that.
What's the date for the duck blind removal?
Usually want them
March
out
1st.
within 30 days after the end of the season. Sometimes it doesn't quite happen due to weather, due to other things.
I mean, aren't there guidelines in the application, the duck blind application?
About,
Like how the duck blind has to be,
no, that's what they were just referring to,
so
potentially putting.
there are no guidelines for that?
It says you can't use, there like phragmites and things like that, but it doesn't specify anything like this at present, no.
Yeah, I don't think anybody intended the foundation to be
Right.
established. Yeah.
It looks more like
I
a
think you can
tent
build-
platform.
Yeah.
You can rent it on Airbnb.
Again, John just put this out for us to begin
No,
discussion.
it's a good thing to be aware of.
I heard some anecdotal information from Southampton that somebody had a, pretty large duck blind and came to check on it, and there was a family staying there.
Oh.
So don't want that to happen.
You're drafting a letter to the applicant.
Yes. Yes. Letter or email, you know who it is, obviously.
Either's fine. I mean, I can do letter or email, whichever you guys prefer.
Jim, do you know this? Do you know the guy that owns this one?
I don't know.
Talk offline.
We'll reach out to the individual. I don't want to bring it up here.
All right, next committee report would be education, the scholarship applications to review.
Yeah, so we've got a lot more applicants this year compared to last year, so that's good. Some really good essays. So we just want to recommend everyone, all the trustees, to go to the office and read them. There's 7, and vote by April 29th, and we'll get a scholarship to one of those deserving students.
So only one possible.
One, yeah, one
Okay.
this year.
So the applications are all in the conference room at the trustee office. So they're all there for you guys to read.
How many have you received?
7.
7? It's better than last year.
Yeah.
It's great. All right, and the next thing we have is special events update. I think most of you are aware that we've been in discussions with the village, who's been issuing special events permits for beach activities and collecting a fee, and they've offered to collect a fee on the trustees' behalf for these same events, and also help with the application process. So put together this draft resolution to that effect for you guys to read and review and have a discussion on.
There's a typo. It says 2 Mile Hallow instead of Hollow in the first paragraph.
But again, we don't need to vote on this tonight. I would like to
Look at this thing.
put it away next meeting, if possible.
Yeah.
We've we've included the fee schedules in here. We have both the town and the village schedules for you to compare. I think we should start a conversation about the possibility of also collecting a fee for events on town beaches for next season. I think it's too late right now to consider it for this year.
Wasn't the cap 50 people on gatherings, beaches? Was that village and town?
Town.
Just town?
Yeah.
Also, village, you can, that's why it says you could have like 250 to 999.
Correct.
A small fee. And for instance, when you said they collect the fee for us, like, do they give us a check or something?
They're willing to collect a separate check.
Those would be 2 checks, one to them, one to us.
Correct. They are willing to include a one-page application from us in their packet and to make sure that we are included as named in the liability insurance certificate.
Yep. That's good. Should have been. This makes sense. Yeah. Just having nothing in place for it.
Yeah, nothing with the liability.
Yeah.
And these would also parallel with their fee schedule. One thing I would like to exempt, they have $100 village resident or village EMS personnel, 50 or more people. I think these fees are a discount to these particular groups. And I'm fine with that on the EMS personnel. But I think if it's an official EMS event, that we should exempt them from a fee.
When you say an official EMS event,
Well, sometimes like a fire company will have a gathering on the beach, you know, like a clam bake or whatever for the members in the family, that sort of thing. I don't know that we need to charge them a fee for that.
okay, I'm trying to figure out what the division is from an EMS event and a non-EMS event.
Okay, so-
EMS event that EMS personnel are attending.
So the East Hampton Fire Department is made up of village residents and non-residents of the village. They're allowing those non-village personnel to be included in the EMS personnel category in order to get the discount on fees if they do an event. So what happens is non-residents who are in the fire department or ambulance squad are considered village residents when they apply for these applications.
Well, technically, they were supposed to be village residents first. No, just town residents of East Hampton. They joined the department.
No, if you're in the fire protection district
Oh, okay.
for I want to say East Hampton, it includes more than the village.
Do we know how much we want our fee to be?
We're looking at $300. The village collects $500 with the same permit. Plus they charge $250 for the use of the parking lots. So.
No, it's fair.
And this mostly pertains to catered events.
Yeah.
Not, yeah.
So if you have a group of people who are going down to the beach and doing a potluck, say, that doesn't fall under any of this. So just look this stuff over and we can continue this next week. Matt, do we have anyone on the phone?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
All right, move on to administrative. Payment of the bills. We still have the Hodgson Russ invoice, $123,310.80. For legal service, we have Optimum, $161.24. Amagansett Post Office box annual fee, $364. And we have Staples, $75.89.
Yeah. Chris, did you get a chance to renew the?
No, let's table that. I don't have that invoice. Let's go and table that one more time, please.
Anybody?
I make a motion to pay the bills with the exception of the legal service one.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Can you repeat the motions and seconds, please?
Jim and Tim.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I have. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about?
I brought up about getting a new sign in front of the trustee office, so we're still working on that. That's all.
Is the town, can the town do that, or should we just go for Ocean Graphics or something right now?
Well, no, I think the town's town sign shop was the one that did that originally.
We're trying to go through this.
It's still
Those
there.
guys are pretty cooperative.
Yeah.
We currently need to have, apparently need ARB approval.
Have what?
We need ARB approval. So Eric, the director of the housing department, is currently working with them, spoke to me today about it.
There's already a sign. Are we proposing any changes?
No, just new.
Yeah,
The
call
new
that-
sign as
I think
is.
that's maintenance.
Maybe a black.
I think that's called maintenance. You really don't.
as far as I understood
Yeah,
it,
we want them to repair the sign that we have.
Black primer. Yeah.
Black primer,
Anyway, we'll get it.
the trash bin needs ARB approval too. So
keeping with the characteristics of the village of Amagansett.
unless I was misunderstanding the conversation today, but I believe he's just asking them for their direction.
Mark Smith had some really good ideas for our sign.
Yeah.
We should
I'll talk to Eric.
Well, he might have some primer left. When you prime the front, we can borrow.
Something.
It's tasteful.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Housing trustees are on the same sign?
Yeah, the housing too. It's gotta be both
The
of them.
whole sign needs to be replaced because it's rotting.
Make a motion
Sure.
to adjourn now.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?